This is NHTV2, North Haven Government Television, a service of North Haven Community Television. The following program is brought to you through the support of the Town of North Haven.
Good evening, everyone, and Happy New Year to each and every one of our North Haven residents, and welcome to the January Board of Selectmen meeting. I'm Michael Frieda, North Haven's first Selectman, joined by our second Selectman, Mr. William Piper, and our third Selectwoman, Ms. Sally Boemi. Sally and Bill, Happy New Year to both of you and your families.
Same to you and everybody else out there.
All right, we're going to, item number one, if we will all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Item number two, regarding tonight's agenda, is there any public comment regarding the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to item number three, the approval of the minutes of the Board of Selectmen meeting from December 6th.
I'll move the approval of those minutes.
I'll second those minutes.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Item number four, tonight I'm dispensing with the PowerPoint. We will resume the PowerPoint presentation for the February meeting, but I want to just make a couple of announcements that tonight the Board of Ed has announced we have a new superintendent of schools in North Haven. And after months of interviews in which an outside consultant was hired by the Board of Ed, I'm delighted to announce that Patrick Stirk, the current principal at Ridge Road School, has been promoted to superintendent of schools here in North Haven. I think this is a very good move, ladies and gentlemen, one that I support 100%. I always think it's important to promote qualified people from within. Patrick and this government have always had a great relationship, like we have had with Dr. Cronin. I worked closely with Patrick at Ridge Road School for a lot of events, and I'm happy to also report that during the transition, Sally and Bill, and to our North Haven residents, that Dr. Cronin has agreed to stay on through the budget season to help guide Patrick and the Board of Ed and still work closely with Ed Swinkowski and I for this fiscal year, this coming fiscal year's budget. So thank you, Dr. Cronin. Patrick Stirk, we're looking forward to working with you. Congratulations.
Well, that's good to hear that Dr. Cronin is going to help out, because this is a tough time of year for a new superintendent to come on board on the doorstep of budgetary season. So
Yes.
That makes a lot of sense.
Second announcement is that we are now starting the budget process. All of our town departments are submitting their requests to Ed Swinkowski. Ed and I will be reviewing all of the requests for the town side of the budget tomorrow. And then Monday, Sally, myself, and Bill will be getting together in the second stage of the budget cycle. From there, ladies and gentlemen, what will happen is there will be a series of workshop sessions in the month of January and also in early February. And I'm making arrangements to have those meetings filmed live for North Haven residents. A schedule of those workshop session meetings is on the town website. And if any other questions in terms of whether or not the meetings are on based upon weather, you can always call us here at North Haven Town Hall. So it's a budget cycle that I would ask everyone to please pay attention to. All of the meetings will be live, and we'll move forward with that process. So Sally and Bill, Monday at 8 a.m., we're meeting as the kickoff of this budget season.
Yes.
Okay. We'd like to do it 8:30.
I know, 8 a.m. is fine.
Okay, all right. And lastly, I believe by the next meeting, I'm going to be announcing a couple of new major businesses coming to town that I think will be very well received by our North Haven residents. So one is on Universal Drive, one is on Upper Washington Avenue, and there's many other projects we're working on. And at the next meeting, which is in February, I'll be giving everyone an update. And as part of my own New Year's resolutions, I've established a top 10 list of economic development projects that we'll be earmarking for this coming year. And Richard Lopresti, who's in the audience, and I work very closely together. Our top 10 And those top 10, I think, once we achieve that, which we will achieve the top 10 by the end of 2019 or no later than early 2020, I think it's going to continue to help us in terms of grand list growth. And lastly, I have one other announcement, that we will be closing in on our grand list growth, and sometime late in January, we'll be announcing exactly what that growth is, which will come at a good time as we start preparing for this upcoming budget for the 2019-2020 fiscal year. So there's going to be a lot of good things happening here in North Haven, ladies and gentlemen, in 2019. And starting next month, we will start to outline some of the major projects that we're going to be bringing to fruition here. Okay, now Sally, did you want to make some mention to you and Bill something here?
Yes, I just wanted to quickly say something. I got a phone call since our last meeting, a few weeks ago, from a citizen, a town resident, who I've known for many years, and she had been watching NHTV, specifically broadcasts and rebroadcasts of the Veterans Ceremony on the Green. And part of that ceremony, in addition to dedicating our new post-Vietnam monument, we also did a special recognition of our World War I veterans on the 100th anniversary of the end of World War I, which she was very appreciative of. But she was surprised that her grandfather, and his name was Charles Papa, was not read, because both Bill and I took turns reading the 95 North Haven residents who participated in World War I. So I said, well, okay, let me just check the plaque, the World War I plaque that's down in the first floor of the town hall. His name was not on there. I thought perhaps it could have been a typographical error. So I called her back, and she just asked that we mention, his service. So based on her assertion that she's certain that he fought in France in World War I, on behalf of the Board of Selectmen, we will acknowledge Charles Papa's service to World War I, and we thank him for his service. So, gentlemen.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely appropriate that we do so. And
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I asked her why he wasn't on the plaque, and she really didn't have an answer, because it was done many decades ago, and she said he wasn't really the kind of guy to come forward and complain. So I'm happy to do that at her request. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Okay.
And glad we acknowledged that, so
Yes.
thank you.
I got a lot of very positive response from that World War I acknowledgement. People are very supportive of our veterans, as they should be. I don't know if you received any, but
We did, yes.
Yeah, it was a good program, in addition, of course, to the dedication of the new monument. So thank you for your time.
Okay. All right, now we're on item number 5, and this is always a major portion of the January meetings, and we're going to be doing resignations and appointments on boards and commissions. So I'm going to ask Sally and Bill to handle this, and maybe Sally, you can kick this off, okay?
I will, okay. I will move the reappointment of Hugh Davis to the Open Space Advisory Committee with the recommendation of the Conservation Commission for a term to expire December 31st, 2019.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussions? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Next item is that I'll move is the reappointment of Patricia Brown, 49 Garfield Avenue, to the Open Space Advisory Committee with the recommendation of the Board of Finance for a term to expire December 31st, 2019.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussions? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'll move the reappointment of Mary Lou Stamp, 292 Upper State Street, to the Open Space Advisory Committee with the recommendation of the Park and Rec Commission for a term to expire December 31st, 2019.
Okay.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I'll move the reappointment of Teresa Veely, 100 Bassett Road, to the Open Space Advisory Committee with the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission for a term to expire December 31st, 2019.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And I'll move the reappointment of Cheryl Juanowicz, 101 Knollwood Road, to the Open Space Advisory Committee with the recommendation of the Inland Wetlands Commission for a term to expire December 31st, 2019.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Next, I'll move the reappointment of Mike Cofrancesco, 6 Frost Drive, to the Open Space Advisory Committee with the recommendation of the Land Trust for a term to expire December 31st, 2019.
Second?
All right, this is Mark Cofrancesco.
Yes.
So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye. And I'll move the reappointment of Stephen J. Fitzgerald, 34 River Road, to the Open Space Advisory Committee with the recommendation of the first selectman for a term to expire December 31st, 2019.
I'll second that.
All right, motion second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
I'll move the reappointment of Pamela D. Simone, 33 Sarah Circle, to the Board of Ethics for a 3-year term to expire December 31st, 2021.
Second?
All right, motion second. Any other discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye. And I'll move the appointment of Jonathan D. Lewin, 78 Allendale Drive, to the Board of Ethics for a 3-year term to expire December 31st, 2021.
I've reviewed, I think Sally has as well, his resume, and I think he's, as an attorney, and based on everything that he's done in terms of community service, I would gladly second that, his appointment to the Board of Ethics.
Right. Yeah, this is our only appointment, really. All the others were reappointments of people. And Bill's right, I did review his resume, and it's very impressive. He's a Yukon guy like myself, so I like that, if I could say.
I spoke with
yes.
Jonathan yesterday just to confirm he was interested. And the good news, ladies and gentlemen, we're starting to get some resumes for people that like to sit on boards and commissions, highly qualified people with great backgrounds, and Jonathan's a good example.
Right, he has a lot of community involvement as well, and so we welcome him.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, right?
Yes.
All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Before we move on to property tax refunds, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Hugh, Patricia, Mary Lou, Teresa, Cheryl, Mark, Stephen, Pam, and Jonathan for stepping forward. And in the first part of this agenda, coming back to Sally's point, that the way the Open Space Committee works, there has to be a recommendation from a different body and a different commission in town, or a different board, and that's why we did what we did earlier. So I'm glad we put this behind us. These
Right.
wonderful individuals are willing and able to serve, so thank you.
The Open Space Advisory Committee has been pretty active, and
Yes.
we've done a lot in that area, so they're important appointments. They're not just,
That's right.
fulfilling the ordinance obligation. They've actually
They've
been
done
pretty
work.
fruitful, yes.
To Sally's point, what they've done is identified parcels of land that would be great parcels to protect against onerous development in the town of North Haven. Come back to us with recommendations, and we've engaged in getting the public to support bonding packages to purchase the open space to maintain the individual charm in certain neighborhoods in the town of which there are open space opportunities. Because although, from an economic development standpoint, we're actively involved bringing new businesses in town, what we don't want is intrusive developments into the neighborhoods of our wonderful town that disrupt the lives of our citizens. And that's kind of the core mission of open space. So, thank you.
Right, and a couple of the properties that we've purchased have potential for having, recreational use and, people who want to, trails and walking, bird watching. Lots of people like
That's right.
myself are into bird watching. So you're right. We have to, of course, put economic development on the forefront, which you do, but we also want to maintain our open space and our small town charm. So I think it's very important, and so these reappointments are exceptionally important.
All right, moving on.
Yes.
Sally and Bill,
Yes,
item 6.
okay, number 6, I'll move the property tax refunds listed in the agenda.
I've taken a look at them, and I would second your motion, Sally.
All right, motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Before we move on to the next Board of Selectmen meeting, I just wanted to say that tonight ends up being a shorter meeting because we just came off the holidays with Christmas and New Year's. We will pick the pace up back in February, like I said, with more announcements and more updates. And we're looking forward to a very successful 2019 here in North Haven. Item number 7, our next meeting of the Board of Selectmen is Thursday, February 7th here at 7 p.m. up here in the upstairs conference room at Town Hall. Item number 8, public comment. Yes, Mary.
Mary White Summerlin. Okay, so I wanted to give the update on the Fire Commission meeting, like I'm used to doing for everybody. So they met on 12/18, and the chief reported, no surprise, once again, there was an increase in alarms, even though it covered a brief period of time due to the holiday. So let's see. So 1 year ago, there were 4,245 alarms, and now there are 4,466 alarms, which represents an increase of 221 alarms. 5 years ago, he reported there were 3,948 alarms, and now with the number 4,466 alarms, that represents an increase in 518 alarms. Since the last time the Fire Commission met, the fire department provided ALS intercepts, where our paramedic rode in the ambulance to the hospital on 10 different occasions. They responded to the highway on 15 different occasions. Since the last time the Fire Commission met, there were 268 incidents, 69 were overlapping, which represents 26% of the calls. Since the last meeting, 63% of the calls were EMS related. The budget this time, last year, was 57.4%. This year, they're at 54.4%. So the fire department was unable to respond to or send any resources at the time of the call on 4 different occasions. So I think it's important to elaborate a little bit on that statistic, and the chief did go into that, so I would like people to know, because these numbers represent human beings, emergencies. So anyway, so he discussed the specifics about these 4 different occasions where they weren't able to send any resources at the time of the call. So on Monday, December 3rd at 2:02, there was an unresponsive patient requiring CPR, and the fire department had no units available to respond initially. Rescue 1 was delayed by 3 minutes in responding. Engine 1 was delayed 4 minutes in responding because they were tied up with other calls. In this case, Rescue 1, our paramedic, assisted with the patient and ended up riding in the ambulance to the hospital. The second one was on Saturday, December 8th at 3:11. There was a car off the highway into the woods. There were 4 patients. 1 required extrication. Headquarters units with the extrication equipment and the paramedic unit were delayed by 12 minutes to respond because they were on scene of other incidents at the time. Rescue and Engine 1 were delayed by 12 minutes. They had a response time on that scene of 19 minutes to that call. They had to rely solely on the volunteer engine and truck with limited inventory because they do not typically respond to those incidents alone. The third one he described took place on Tuesday, December 11th at 5:23. There were no units available to respond to a 97-year-old who fell and was unable to get up. They relied solely on AMR response. And the fourth one he talked about was on Tuesday, December 11th at 5:46 p.m. A 71-year-old female had difficulty breathing. They had no fire units available to respond. They relied on AMR solely to respond. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so he talked about the fire marshal's office. They conducted 25 inspections, 5 re-inspections, 8 code violations, 3 corrected, reviewed 81 different plan reviews and permits. He reported that since the last meeting, the permit fees brought in was $19,296 for a total this fiscal year of $321,448. Okay, let's see what I want to say next. All right, so now, let's see. They talked about what keeps the fire marshal's office busy. They completed fire inspection report for 33 Defco Park Road, and that report is available for the Fire Commission and anyone else who would like to see it. They continue to have ongoing fire investigations into numerous outside fires in town. They have a suspect they are investigating with other authorities, and there should be more on that soon. Amazon continues to tie up the inspector with fire mains, hydrants, riders, and sprinklers, all being inspected and flushed as required. They've been on the scene at 201 Clintonville Road quite often. That's the North Haven Senior Living, and that's at a point of construction where it requires a number of visits. He talked about training since the last meeting. They covered cold weather operations, accountability training, and they started to install hydrant flags around town and check hydrants like they normally do. So the next part of the meeting, the Board of Fire Commissioners Chair, Pat Nuzzolillo, he read the response, and they discussed the response report to that Board of Finance Fire Subcommittee's recommendations, and that report was authored by, the recommendation was authored by Mike Callahan and Rich Monaco from the Board of Finance. So here's some of the things that they talked about. They agreed to utilize the $140,000 to hire 2 full-time firefighters. The new firefighters will be assigned at the chief's discretion in a manner not to cause any breach in the labor agreement and will enhance services provided by the department. He read part of the fire department's mission statement. It includes, quote, "Our job is to provide for the protection of property from adverse effects of fire, medical emergencies, and exposure to dangerous environments from either man-made or natural disasters," close quote. They said it's imperative the North Haven Fire Department take the appropriate steps to replace the equipment and apparatus in a timely manner. It is equally important to ensure the personnel are available to respond to all incidents which can be reasonably anticipated within the town of North Haven. They talked about the volunteer firefighters cannot respond to second and third calls through no fault of their own. But due to the lower numbers of volunteer firefighters, change in demographic, and the lack of volunteer firefighters is a nationwide issue, particularly in Connecticut, with volunteer firefighters working more than one job. And employers no longer allow volunteer firefighters to leave their work to respond to fires. Let's see. Okay. So they talked about with a local booming economy, an increasing call volume, an aging population, how can the fire department meet the demands with no increasing in staff? What the public expectations are differ between the Board of Finance and the Fire Commission. The Board of Finance has determined what level of risk will be for all residents, visitors, businesses, owners within our town. Let's see. So he's talked about the Board of Fire Commissioners adamantly feels the public needs to be informed of the associated risk due to the current staffing levels with regards to the ability to respond to fire and medical emergencies. The Fire Commission fears little attention has been paid to the staffing needs of the fire department until a catastrophic catastrophe occurs, which is a risk the Fire Commission isn't willing to take. He talked about the Fire Commission meets monthly. They have decades of experience, and they discuss the administrative and operational needs of the fire department. It is their opinion an increase in staffing must be funded to satisfy the following. Number 1, increase the number of paramedics on duty at all times. Number 2, increase the number of apparatus available to respond to incidents due to simultaneous calls for services. Number 3, increase the number of firefighters on scene. And lastly, he talked about the Board of Fire Commissioners' analysis of the final Board of Finance Subcommittee's report. It is not meant to discredit any member of the Board of Finance for their opinions and findings. The Board of Fire Commissioners is appreciative of the time taken to review these matters and welcomes future constructive dialogue. Okay, so they talked about the damage to the clothing and equipment from the fire on 11/24 at 33 Defco Park. The chief talked about the manufacturers were given a list of chemicals. There was much dialogue that took place as to whether or not they would stand by the warranty for many items: gloves, helmets, hoods, jackets, pants, flashlights, radios, apparatus, thermal imaging cameras, hoses, nozzles, etc. Fortunately, the number that was given of $800,000 is actually, it's going to be less to replace because the radios could be decontaminated and cleaned, which they have been. So he came up with a number for replacement of the equipment of $574,305. Let's see. The chief's been in touch with the first Selectmen's office, and they are going to replace this equipment now. The chief has been in touch with Wallingford's fire department. They had damage of $50,134. They had 4 firefighters in the area of contamination, the area of concern. Their number is less because they only had 4 firefighters there. Let's see. So they talked about the air pack vendor, got in touch with Stamford FD. They had gotten new tanks, so that's this town that offered to allow the fire department to use their tanks until their tanks come in. They talked about giving authoring thank you letters. They talked about the Connecticut Deep was on the scene and addressed any environmental concerns. They said it was minimal. They had a company on the scene the next day taking care of the chemicals in the building. Okay, they did talk about the manufacturers. What they've done is put all nationwide production aside and are dealing with the emergency purchase from the town of North Haven. And so there should not be a significant delay. And that's that update. So the next thing I'd like to talk about is I mentioned last time about the cable companies.
Mary, maybe we should see if somebody else has public comment first.
Oh, okay.
I don't know, because we have a couple of other, guests here. I'm sorry to interrupt,
Oh,
but
okay.
I just wanted to,
I have something I wanted to mention.
Okay.
you just wanted to give,
Yeah, I just have 2 more things,
All right,
but I
yeah.
can wait.
that's okay, and that'll at least, give them an opportunity, because I know they've been patiently waiting. And then you're more than welcome to come back up.
okay.
I'm sorry.
I had a question about,
Can you identify yourself?
I'm Neil Klein,
Thank you.
Maple Avenue.
Maple Avenue resident. I had a question about how the fast food restaurants in our town handle their waste, because from my understanding, they are not required to recycle. So, is that correct?
We don't monitor that.
Okay, so from my visiting some of these places, the only one that recycles that I know of voluntarily is Starbucks. And the others have quite a large volume of recyclables that are being put into the waste stream. So I'm wondering if that's one way that we can address some of the litter problem in our town that's ongoing and increasing, and also the issue of recycling as much as possible to reduce waste volume.
Well, we've been doing that, Neil. We've been on single stream recycling for years. In fact,
Well, the companies, for example, the fast food restaurants that generate an enormous amount of waste.
but we don't monitor them.
No, they have commercial
They have
pickup.
commercial, that's commercial pickup, has nothing to do with the town of North Haven. They
Well,
hire.
they're businesses in North Haven, but the way they handle their waste has nothing to do with our town?
No.
So where does their waste go?
They have, like Sally said, they have commercial haulers that take the waste away. They pay for that service. Many of them have dumpsters in the back of their parking lots, and the town has absolutely no involvement with that.
Whether it's overseen by the state
Yeah.
Board of Health or some other agency. I don't, I'd have to check into that,
Well,
but we
can-
don't.
Is that something that can be
We incur-
investigated to see
yeah.
that possibly we can change that practice? Because there's an enormous amount of material that is recyclable that's being dumped into the waste stream. And our goal is not only to keep our town clean, but also to reduce the amount of waste that's going into landfills, et cetera.
Yeah,
So-
I agree with you 100%. And from a town perspective, we've done that and advocated, in our sanitation policy and pickup.
In
And
fact, we've
I
been,
mean, that's residential, but I'm sure
Yeah, I
that
know. Well,
the
that's all we
businesses
have
produce
of-
probably even a larger volume
so Neil,
of
let me
waste
explain,
than the
let me explain.
residents
Can I
do.
explain something to you, please?
Sure.
I happen to be the chairman of the Covanta Municipal Waste Board. That is a board of 5 surrounding cities and towns. And none of us have anything to do with commercial waste. What we're involved with is municipal waste and municipal recycling. We have a contract at South Cherry Street in
Municipal,
Wallingford.
can you define municipal?
Residential.
Residential. Okay.
Residential.
Okay.
Each of us have evolved into major initiatives of single-stream recycling. At one point, we were getting paid for single-stream recycling. Now we're having to pay to have it removed. The commercial haulers that service restaurants, that service any other businesses, are separate and distinct from every city and town. There's no city and town that monitors the waste from restaurants. What we're trying to do, I'll give you a little peek inside of a major project I'm working on, is to create what's called an anaerobic digester facility at a location in North Haven, so that can be a repository for restaurants, colleges, and hospitals to bring their waste to, and then it gets turned into an energy, a form of energy, or wood pellets. That's what the project we're working on. But this government has no ability to oversee restaurants in town in terms of what they do with their waste.
So how do we address that issue? Because I understand you're saying the town has no power or jurisdiction. So how do we address that? Because it's a problem.
Might have to be addressed at the state level.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I
I
would
think
think
so,
that
yeah.
there are state, the town
Might
is
be
not
something
a,
in terms of state statute.
this town is not a regulatory agency, but, these businesses all have licenses.
So as a concerned citizen,
Yes,
what can I do, okay, to maybe take a step in that direction?
So I can
Talk
help.
to your Mr. Yacarino and Mr.
Or you can call the Department of Energy Environment Protection in Hartford, called
Right.
DEEP. They regulate all that. DEEP. It's an acronym, Department of Energy Environment Protection.
Okay, I'll
Or
start there.
the Board of
Yeah.
Health, maybe, because they're always
Yeah, or
doing
that's a
spot
good point. Or
inspections.
the Quinnipiac Health Valley District that's located here in North Haven, Neil, that services North Haven, Bethany, Cheshire, and Hamden.
Yeah.
Okay.
We share your concerns for the environment and for recycling, absolutely.
I
And
mean, it doesn't make sense.
Right.
Because they're producing very large volumes.
Right.
As opposed to what the residents are producing.
Go to McDonald's and talk to the owner. I'm sure he'll talk to you about
Well,
it.
John McKnight, that's a good point. John McKnight would be more than happy to explain to anybody exactly what
What's
they're doing
going on
there.
and,
Who they have.
I don't know the owners of the other
Yeah.
hamburger joints, I'm sure you do, but I know John and, he's gonna say, oh, great, send people to me.
What's the name
But
of the Quinnipiac?
Quinnipiac Valley Health
Valley?
District.
Quinnipiac Valley Health District, yes. Actually, they're located on Hartford Turnpike, just past the Dixwell Avenue intersection going southbound.
Okay.
Okay, very good, thank you. Mary, would you like to come back up?
So I just wanted to bring up again the proposal by the cable companies to the FCC. They're proposing to put a cap on the franchise fees paid to the regulatory authorities. If this proposal is approved, No more funding for community public television will be received by towns and cities. And they will also take away our channels. So here in North Haven, we'll lose channel 18, 19, and 20. They're supposed to make this decision this month. So what's happening is they're trying to sneak this in. Our representatives in Washington, D.C. are very distracted now with the government shutdown. So what I've been doing is, and I would ask everybody to do it as well, call your senators, call your representatives. It doesn't matter the party affiliation. This is not a good proposal. Nobody wants it that I've spoken with. So if you could just please call and just constantly ask the aide who answers the phone, just tell them you're not in favor of this. Please make sure the senator or the representative is aware of this. What can they do? So I wanted to mention that. And the last thing I wanted to talk about was I wanted to give the budget workshops for there's Maine, not that the departments they're all interesting, but some have more interest than others. So I wanted to give the date and the time. So the fire department's budget workshop is Saturday, January 19th at 9:15 in the morning. The police department's budget workshop is Wednesday, January 20th at 8:30 p.m. The Public Works budget workshop is Wednesday, January 16th at 7:30 p.m. And the Board of Education, the first time their budget workshop is presented will be on Saturday, February 2nd at 8:45 in the morning. And then it says that the Board of Education will present their final budget to the Board of Finance on Friday, March 1st, but it doesn't say the time. So I don't know. It says Board of Education final budget to Board of Finance Friday, March 1st, but it doesn't say the time. Does anybody know what time it is? We don't know. Okay. All
Does
right.
anyone really care? That's
I mean, that'll all.
It's a song.
Yeah, I mean, that'll all
I
be, that'll all be refined.
The Board of Ed is on a Friday? Because usually,
Ah.
they usually have,
That's a Saturday.
it's usually they have their own Saturday
Well, it
morning.
says Board of Education final budget to Board of Finance Friday, March 1st.
Well, that's when it's due. That's not the workshop.
Okay, that's not a workshop, so they're not going to be
No,
presenting.
the workshop would be
Okay.
before that.
Okay, so all right. So,
Yeah,
I
So
guess
you
my-
have the list of all of the
I got the list,
deadlines,
right.
Not just the workshop.
So there's no time because they're not
Turn
meeting.
that paper around. Let me just see if
You want to see?
yeah. No, I know that. You have, no. That's like a homework assignment. It's due by that day.
Yeah.
It's Board of Ed,
No,
so I
that's
thought.
exactly right.
So they're not going to be meeting. So just the one time they meet. They don't come back
Right.
and meet.
Right.
Okay. So okay, all right. So if any adjustments are made or if there's any questions by the Board of Finance during the budget workshop, do any of the departments, they don't return to modify? They just, whatever the Board of Finance decides?
Boy, that's been,
Is that how that
Yeah.
works, right?
no, yeah, that's the way it's worked for
Right.
decades here,
Yep,
yes.
just asking.
There's been a couple of times the Board of Ed has asked for a delay in their
Yes,
workshop
yes.
because they weren't
They weren't
ready. And
Okay.
you could argue sometimes when they gave the workshop, they weren't ready, but, whoops. But, but
right.
if they're ready, they'll go forward on the day of the workshop
The
that's
day of the
listed
workshop,
there.
right.
Right.
And
So the
then,
other date
yes,
is a submission.
A submission, yeah,
Yes.
Sally's right. It's a
Okay,
submission.
good.
They have to
Okay.
hand it in.
And then these are, I think I asked at the Board of Finance, a confirmation on whether or not we know they're going to be recorded, we know they're going to be on television, but would they be recorded live?
I mentioned that twice
Yeah.
tonight.
And then,
Yeah.
yeah, so it was. Okay, we
Yes.
were late. All right, thank you.
were
The two on Wednesday were after the regularly scheduled Board of Finance
Right,
meeting.
right.
Yeah.
So, it's part of, just a continuation of the regular Board of
Meeting,
Finance.
right.
Okay, any other public comment? All right, seeing none, motion to adjourn.
So,
Second it?
All right, motion, second, any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We'll see everyone at the February meeting. Thank you.
The preceding program is brought to you in part through a grant from the town of North Haven. Watch town meetings or other videos on demand at nhtv.com.